Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Joe. Oh, come on. I am following Don Taylor this morning. You can do better than that. Okay, the coffee hasn't kicked in just yet. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Cook on Twitter. I am Lightbulb Joe. I'm looking forward to using the microphone properly. I'm really looking forward to this session because it's all about video. So most of you know that my work is around webinar and virtual classrooms, but actually that includes loads of video use these days, and also part of our blended options too. We've got two fabulous speakers today. We have the absolutely lovely Barbara Thompson, who's going to be going first, and we have Jaco van der Worp as well. Completely different backgrounds, different areas that they work in, consulting, and me? I'm in the posh place now. And at the front of the session, what you can do is you can come and pick up something that Barbara has written for Clear Lessons. Clear Lessons is also doing a digital series. So if you want to get on video, start talking about what you're good at, they go and share this video out with everyone. So do go and Google them or go downstairs and have a look at them. And today is also going to be quite interactive. There's an activity to do a little bit later on, so be prepared. And at the end of the session, you've probably heard about the bridge. I thought it was going to be all Star Trek when I first heard about this. I'm a bit disappointed it's not. But what we're doing in the bridge, the very last 5 minutes, is all about, this session's been great, what are you actually going to do and take home with you? And I'm going to invite you at the end to maybe record some kind of video and share that. It could be a live Periscope video if you've got the app. It could just be something you record for 30 seconds on your phone and share. You don't have to, but that's what I'm going to invite you to do. And if at the moment you're thinking, no, maybe by the end of the session with our two fabulous speakers, you'll be going, okay then, and you can maybe buddy up with someone else. Are you ready for our first lovely speaker? Yes. Right, I'll get out of the way then. Over to you.
Cheers, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the graveyard shift. I'm very mindful of what it is. You'll see a rather cryptic title that I have there, 1 of 5 billion. Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to what the 5 billion could be relative to my talk? Anyone? Sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes. It's the daily usage of, give that lady a star, the daily views on YouTube. It's 5 billion. It's bloody staggering figures, aren't they? So with that, I'm going to add one other to the mix. So I'm going to show you one I did earlier. Might need to volume up a little bit. Thank you. Are you Barbara? Yeah, I thought so. I've seen you around before. Listen, I understand that you use videos for learning, right? Fantastic. I've got a requirement for some communication skills and would love for you to work on some videos for me. Something you can help with? Great. I'll need it in about a week's time, though. All right, thank you. Got a dash. Bye. So a rather excitable young lady there, who actually looks quite a lot like me, don't you think? And what's quite interesting about that is that was a bit of a story back when I first got into L&D and I was given my first video assignment. I was really excited and I thought it was a gift. And in fact, I'm telling you, it's not a gift, it's a bloody trap. The trap is that someone sauntered over to my desk and presented this sort of creative thing, and I thought, yay, which is why I was sort of punching the air. There was no conversation about outcomes, and they came to me with a solution without me understanding the problem. So in terms of a cautionary note, it's really exciting to work in video, but be mindful of the fact that people might bring it to you with a suggestion that it's going to come and save the day. Video will not come and save the day at all. And in fact, the suggestion that people learn by watching video could be a topic in its own right, but I won't sort of take up the airtime with that today. But actually, video is a really great way as I'm sure all of you know, because we all kind of look at video, to really sow a seed and to perhaps give people the encouragement to go and look at things in perhaps a longer form way, but it's by no means the whole thing. So that's my cautionary note. And the expression that I think really sort of springs to mind is someone that I trained with quite a few years ago, a chap called Nigel Harrison, who does performance consulting, and he refers to this dynamic as the conspiracy of convenience. So when the business might come to us with a suggestion, oh, you can fix my problem, and then L&D dutifully say, yes, we can, it's a trap. Don't get involved in the trap. So a number of years ago, I stumbled across this really useful frame that keeps me incredibly honest when working with video, because everyone's got a view about what design is and what it should be and what creative is and what it isn't. But really, we need to think about objective and intent. And when I'm talking about objective, I don't mean learning objectives. I mean, what is the objective for the video that you're creating? So this sort of really four simple terms really helped me to keep me honest, because no one here could argue that, for example, Save the Children, their ads are here to entertain. Of course it's not. Their ads are here to convince us to open our purses and wallets, to donate. Now, it's not to say that it doesn't fall into other categories, but you must be clear about what your primary intent of video is. So conceivably, or arguably with Save the Children, using that same example, they're there to educate as well, so potentially that people could come and join them and help them with volunteering. So do you get the gist with that? There has to be a primary reason for you doing it. Otherwise, the creative elements, which we all enjoy doing, it will just simply flap around in the wind because it's got nothing to anchor to. So you're going to hear this theme. In fact, I've been hearing this theme for the last couple of years. It's to really think like a marketeer, because this is how a marketeer would think. It's how does this piece of content contribute to the overall content strategy, and not just sort of think about it as a kind of siloed piece of activity. So the basic ingredient of a story is perhaps something that you might not necessarily have front of mind, but it's this. Every story has a villain and a hero. So typically in Hollywood, it's a swashbuckling, handsome guy that comes to save, the defenseless woman. Of course, there are sort of different ways that that's represented nowadays, but that's the core construct of a story, a hero and a villain. So since I know that, I kind of use that in a business context. So I think about the villain in terms of the perception of time that everyone says that they don't have. And then I think about what could be the hero. And the hero is a resource or a piece of content or something that's going to contribute to giving them back time, or the perception of giving them back time. So they're not struggling looking at intranet sites where things aren't tagged properly and they can't get access to things. So think about this within your own solutions, is really, before you even start getting into the creative aspect, what is the positioning of the hero and the villain? But the thing to be mindful of is don't just make it up, because people will realise if you're sort of, being a little bit unscrupulous with that. So if the suggestion of a resource or a course or whatever is going to come and save the day and it's not, then don't position it as such. One thing I've been mindful of working in corporates for quite some time is that we've kind of lost the art of how to speak to people. And I know it's not anyone in the room that does this, but I become sad when I see corporate messages. They're dull, they're over complex. We defer to email more than perhaps having a good emotive conversation. And I'm here to wage war with that. I think even if you take an example of something that's a really compelling message to all of us, which is don't drink and drive, I've noticed that there's been a shift in that narrative. So quite rightly, they want to reinforce that message. I don't think any of us would argue about that. But there's something around the shift from a very directive, don't drink and drive, to recent years where they've started to use more of a storytelling and emotive aspect. Typically, it tends to involve a young person, so you kind of connect with someone who might be coming out of their home with their family, and unfortunately they get hit. Can you see how that shift is from don't drink and drive to using a more emotive way to affect us, and then wrapped up in the CTA, the call to action, don't drink and drive? That's a shift which I'm suggesting that we need with our organisations as well. So even if something is really profound and meaningful, such as kind of safety and the compliance and all of those other things, I still insist that there's a way that you can still bring a human element to it. Because quite frankly, if just telling people not to do something was working, then we wouldn't have to use messages of don't drink and drive. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples from my own portfolio, just to kind of get some creative juices flowing. So I'm going to show you 3 examples. The first is relating to networking. I was working with a graduate cohort, and one of the things they said is that networking is terrifying. You know, when we go to networking events, we kind of stand in the corner and hope that no one sees us. And I was really just trying to get them to have a different perspective of what networking is. So I'll just show you a few small snippets of what I did there. The second is relating to line managers and how they have better development conversations and how they must lean in and kind of support their team members. And the third will be a bit of a surprise.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
What do you do?
How many business cards did you collect?
Need to network.
You must be on LinkedIn. How many followers do you have? You don't need to meet people anymore. You can network online.
I've got 2,000 contacts in my phone book. Now that's a great network.
74% of people using the internet log on to social networking sites. That's over 2 billion internet users who are logging in on a regular basis. 2 people join LinkedIn every second. 70% of all jobs are filled by recommendation or referral. In 1 year alone, there were 28,400 conferences and similar events just in the United States, with a total of 87 million attendees. When it comes to networking, it's time to change. It's time to modernise our thinking.
So it's the second one.
One of the best things my parents ever did for me was taking me to Australia. So I went there when I was 9 years old. What I really learned from that experience is that it's sort of when you're plunged into these new and challenging situations, they can be some of the most sort of enriching and valuable learning experiences. The thing that makes a real difference is the level to which you're supported by the people around you. The person who sort of really stands out for me when I think about my time at school would be my German teacher, and he was also my head of sixth form. He's called Mr. Tiver, and just this amazing, inspirational character. So he gave
No, I didn't do the last one, my niece did, but I love it because it's not my musical genre, but there was a very sophisticated way that she captured that merriment and excitement and really pulled us in. And it's actually just using a lens, it's called a fish lens. And so what I just want to show there's a variety of ways that you can do things. The first 2, the edits were done in post-production, but the last one was just using a lens on the back of your smartphone. With the first 2, just to recap, so the first one was around just the dynamism of numbers and the sheer scale of things. It was just to get people to understand that actually there's lots of different ways that you can contribute to networking. It's not just simply about connecting business cards. That was one of the messages that we wanted to get through. The second one was to take people back to their formative years. These were employee stories, and go back into their formative years where people perhaps might feel vulnerable. And what I wanted line managers to feel from this is to get to a place where they recognise that someone also put the virtual arm around them, so to take them back to that place. And then the third one I've just explained. So that just kind of gives you some examples of how I think that you can connect emotionally. So can I just have a show of hands for those of you The screen's gone. Can I just have a show of hands for those of you who use your smartphones, for example, if you go to sporting events or, music festivals, etc. Let's have a look. It's quite a large number of you. So there's a term for people like you. You are called prosumers. So this term came about, or a derivative of it, from the dot-com era, and it's a combination of producers and consumers. Now, the reason that this is quite significant is that there's an element of distrust that we have with brands. In fact, 71% of us prefer friends and family recommendations to brand push advertising. So the advocacy with people putting up their own brand messages is far more sophisticated, and brands have cottoned onto that as a really valuable way for people to develop advocacy. So in our world, what that means is that you should absolutely encourage user-generated content, because that flips the script to what I was talking about in terms of the distrust. Because unfortunately, this dynamic of us being part of HR is kind of analogous to pushing out brand messages. So think about your prosumers and make sure that user-generated content is part of your strategy to build trust and advocacy. So Marketing Week and YouGov did a study a little while ago, and they looked at ads over the last sort of 5 decades, and they looked for 2 considerations: memorability and brand association. This is making me feel really, really old, because these ads are over 10 years old. But can anyone tell me what the brand is on the left-hand side with the gorilla? Does anyone know? Yeah, you just kind of prove the point. It's the Cadbury's chocolate. Quite what a gorilla hitting a drum has to do with chocolate, I do not know, but it's kind of stuck in our memories. And the right-hand side. Sorry? Yeah, Compare the Meerkat. Now, clearly, in the noughties, there seemed to be some sort of thing about using animals, and I'm not suggesting that we have to do that, and nor do we have the lofty budgets to create campaigns like this. But the key thing to take away from this is memorability. It's just no point creating content, particularly using something as rich and as valuable as video, if it's just going to be consigned to the kind of the scrap heap, really. So I've sprinted through a couple of hints and tips and some lessons that I've learned along the way. There's a little exercise that we're going to get you to do. So if you cast your mind back to that lady and her conspiracy of convenience thing, if we assume that you've done the due diligence and communication skills is what you're going to support her with, and video could be a really useful part of the overall content mix, what I want you to consider is these 3 things on your tables. So consider your primary objective within the whole span of communications. So, I'm thinking, I tend to do this when I'm speaking to stakeholders, so bear with me for doing this little arm action. So communications could be active listening. Communications could be trust. So think about it on your table. Think about what you want to get super, super laser focused with. So that's the first thing to do. That's the second point. The first point is to consider your primary objective. So is it to educate? Is it to inspire? And I'll put that slide back up again so that you know what those are. And then if you have time, think about what your creative treatment's going to be. I mean, that's kind of where the fun is. So I'm not saying that within the time that we have, not that you're going to walk along the street and do X, Y, and Z, but might you consider putting someone in a room, doing X, Y, and Z? Might you consider an animation? So just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. So I thought that as I've got the graveyard shift, I'm going to get you to work. So we've got 10 minutes. We'll give you a shout a couple of minutes before. But if you collaborate on your tables with those 3 points. Would anyone like me to put those 4 objectives back on the screen, or do you know what they are? I'll put them back on. So you're really engrossed in conversations, but I'll bring you back into focus now. Would any of the tables care to share either creative treatment, that they're quite... I heard some really good things walking around the room, considering the time of the afternoon. Would anyone care to share? Otherwise, I might have to pick on a table.
Oh, there. Yes.
Okay. Do we have a microphone to... Joe, do we have? Okay.
So we talked around, the first question, which I thought was a brilliant one, was who is our audience? So who are we going after? And we decided that was going to be new recruits. And then we said what we would do is inspire them. So that was going to be our primary objective. And instead of, we did think about going big budget in Hollywood and getting Brad Pitt in. And as much as I would have liked to, for whatever reason, we decided to go with user-generated content and go with the prosumer term, which I'd never heard of before, and I thought that was a really nice articulation of it. So using people who are 6 months into the organisation to share how it really felt, and then bring other people along on that journey with this idea that you've got a bit of a no filter and a bit of a window on the world and what it's really like. Like, you had some really good insights on even what it's like to what people wear and how people talk to each other and what the vibe is in the office, and trying to bring all of that to life.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got time for perhaps another one or two.
Want someone close by?
I'm going to pick on Ned's table then.
Where's there he is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We kind of bearing in mind the keynote this morning around the fact that 50% of time is lost through emailing, messaging, and decided that we'd focus in on that message. And from a primary objective point of view, looking to convince our audience, which would be really everybody, that there is more to communication than just writing your message down. I mean, you lose things like your tone of voice in there. And so it was, go back to the notes. We jumped a little bit to the solution bit, because that is the fun part, but had this idea of do you really know who's responding to your mail? How do you know that someone's actually not out and put a bot in place responding to email, and almost split screen it as having an email being sent to someone and then a robot responding back to it compared to a human responding back to it compared to another human just deciding, you know what, I'll pick up the phone and actually have a conversation or go and meet them. And we were thinking prosumer, but actually Pixar have just been on the phone and want to take the story on, so winner.
Great, thank you very much. Okie dokes. Is there any more? Okay. So last couple of slides now. What I want to share with you is that if you are interested in doing videos yourself, there are a couple of pieces of kit which I suggest are the absolute bare minimum. Get to the slide. Here we go. So, this is a tripod, quite lightweight. It's got a pan action here, and actually, helpfully, it's got a spirit level as well, so it can help you keep that straight. This is really handy because my hands are incredibly weak and they start shaking after a while. So, tripod is an absolute must. This is called a gorilla pod. I use this all the time, not necessarily just for video, when I want to take pictures, because the arms are bendable, so you can actually hook them round anything you want. I could hook it over here if I wanted to. Sorry, I could hook it wherever I wanted to. So this, you can kind of see, is actually far more easier to carry than this, but obviously you get a better job from this, and you can pan around with that. So they're tripod stands. The one thing that people are quite unforgiving about is not actually the visual element of a video, but audio. And this is a little plug-in mic that you can actually put into a camera itself or into your kind of smartphone, and you get really good quality audio as a result. So this is an absolute must. Over the last sort of 4 or 5 months or so, I've seen a rise in people generating videos on LinkedIn, which is great. But the one thing that I hate is this. When people are creating videos outside. So this is something that can actually go on the top of your mic, and it's basically a wind diffuser, and it just takes away all of that background noise. So this is also something that I suggest is a must if you're filming outside. And lastly, and remembering I'm just talking about bare minimum, some people will think that there's perhaps other things that you need to have. This is another way that you can use something to keep a sort of steady hand. And the good thing about this is that you can actually plug in your mic. There's a little port at the bottom there. You can actually put it as well on the top of your tripod stand, or you can just hold it in your hand. And you put your smartphone in there, and it's just a way that can give you a steady hand, and you can put onto other artifacts. So I suggest that these are the bare minimum. I'll share in the slides when they're sent out the actual links. I've got them all from video. They're not from Amazon, I should say. They're not a huge amount of money. I mean, you can spend some serious money just trying to pretend that you're a video producer like me, but these weren't wildly expensive. So these are what I suggest is the kind of the bare minimum that you invest in if you want to do your own video content. So just wrapping up on sort of 5 key themes, remember what might masquerade as a gift is in fact a trap. Remember the conspiracy of convenience. What else have we got here? Think about your primary objectives. And just to reinforce, because there was a couple of questions around the room, it is perfectly okay for content to actually go into all of those elements, but really consider what your primary objective is. Because otherwise you can't really go on then to think about your creative treatment, because if you're sort of not sure whether you're going to inspire or educate, then you're not really quite sure about which creative treatment to use, because there are different approaches that you can use for all of those different themes. Connect with your audience. There's lots of ways to do that. Get some inspiration from kind of YouTube or films that you see or television programs. But just this whole directive saying to people that they must do things is likely to alienate more than get people to do what you intend. Think about your prosumers, yay. Think about trust. Think about when, for example, whenever I go on holidays, I always use TripAdvisor. I have been burnt by looking at a website and seeing these glossy images, and then when I get to the actual hotel, it looks nothing like what I saw, or they've taken a really good, very good image and it doesn't represent. So that's the same principle of trust. And also make it memorable. Think about your gorillas and your meerkats. Have those front of mind. And I suppose the last thing to remember is that people will suggest that the video could be, if you're thinking about it from an education perspective, that video is the only thing, but consider it as part of your overall content strategy. So, for example, I tend not to use videos too much to educate unless I'm doing screencasts. But I use the video to do more of the kind of the richer things, and then as part of the content strategy, I will have something longer form, maybe a white paper, something a little bit more formal to do more of the education piece. So think about the value of video and think about how you use it. And lastly, because the title of this conference is Learning Technologies, there's likely to be quite a lot of conversation around digital, and I'm here to make sure that the human dimension is front of mind. So I found this beautiful quote, which really just kind of symbolises that. The greatest technology that humans have ever invented, have ever created. So that's me. Hope you enjoyed the talk. Those are my contact details. And now we're going to hand over to the next segment of the presentation.
All right, thank you. Barbara, thank you. I'm going on with this story now. I'm going to show you some practical tips from our hospital. And we also have there a lot of prosumers. So it's a new word I now already like. Short introduction. I worked as a cardiac care nurse in the hospital. And now I worked in L&D. And my passion is about video, learning at the workspace. And also I'd like to share it with you. I work in the Groene Hart Hospital in the Netherlands. Perhaps you know it in Gouda from the cheese. Gouda cheese. Our hospital is one of the 100 hospitals in the Netherlands. We have 400 beds, 2,200 employees, and 165 doctors, and also a lot of volunteers in the hospital. And this is our corporate video. So you see in 1 minute how our hospital is. And the Green Heart is for, we are in the part of Holland with a lot of green cows and grass and that sort of thing. That's why it's called the Green Heart Hospital. If you open our website, you will see this video. I'm going to share with you 3 tips. One in the clinic, one with the room assistants, and one at the pharmacy. The first one is in the clinic. As I worked as a nurse at the cardiac care, and when there was a resuscitation, I had to go there. But now we have a new defibrillator in the hospital, and when you have and it's very important that every nurse has a quick access what is new and what's old. But we had from the manufacturer, we had an e-learning, but it was 200 pages and it was only text. As a nurse myself, as I got a big e-learning, I thought, oh no, not again. But now the question was, will you make a quick, scalable learning solution for this new defibrillator? So what we did, we integrated mobile video with our performance support tool. And it looked like this. We have a tool, the nurses can open it, and first they see what the process is, so they must prepare. Then you see what the task is, that's turn the new defibrillator on. And then you see the step, and the step is hold the button for 3 seconds. With the old one, you push the button and it went on. Now you must push it for 3 seconds. So it's a big change. So if you push it and you think, oh, it doesn't work, I call someone. So that's why we make a short video. It was only 6 or 8 seconds, but then the nurses really quick saw, oh, I have to push it for 3 seconds. This is another example here, also from a video, how to push, how to give a shock if someone has a cardiac arrest, and also with a quick, they saw how it worked. You see, this one is only 7 seconds, but it was very effective. And we had a quick, scalable solution. And it's also, they can open it on the mobile phone or on the laptop or on the, anything that they want to open it. And here is also a user experience I'd like to show. and the result is that they had quick access at the moment of need. So no big e-learning that they could open at home and they hope to remember, but at the moment of need they can open it and they can see how it really works.
Hi, my name is Corrie Marjolein. I'm working as an emergency nurse in a hospital in Holland. I was involved by developing a learning manual for learning on the job. What we did is we took our cell phones to make some short videos. Some of the videos are less than 10 seconds. It can be done anywhere in your hospital to make a manual to learn on the job. This manual helps the workers in the emergency care to have a quick access to situations they need. And as a nurse, I believe that videos are a powerful tool to help people to learn fast and quick by the things they need to know.
And it's also nice that I am not the one who makes it, but the nurses themselves make them. So I'll help them with thinking about the task and the steps, but they make it because they know what is the best for them. Then we go on to the second example. We have in the hospital room assistants, and they help catering for the patients and they support the nurses. But that's not in the evening hours, and we have then many students who are room assistants. And the problem is the department had nice newsletters, but nobody opened them. So they went, so they didn't know that we had a new app, because in the hospital we had a new app for the patients, which in the patient could order a coffee or extra blanket, pillow, but the room assistants are the one who must help with the app. So what we did here, we make a showcase with a channel on it, and we ask someone about, from the hospital to talk about the new app. So we had a talking head, and he talked about how the new app works, what's the role of the room assistants. And this is the channel, and now the room assistants, the students, can open this at home, and there they can access the videos, and they can see how the new app works. So it's much better than a newsletter they don't read anyway. And this also is can be opened on their mobile phones.
Hi, I'm Selena and I'm a student. At school, I already use video learning a lot. I'm happy that now the instructions to do my job well are also available on video at the hospital. That's for me more useful than text. Now I can learn anytime, any place.
It's also very odd that all the students at home, they look something up in YouTube. At school they have also all things on video, and when they work in the hospital it's all text. So that's why we also are changing that. Then the last one is in the pharmacy. We had a new medication new way of prescribing medication in our hospital, and all our 165 doctors must be trained. And the first thought was we do classroom, and then all the doctors come and we go train them, and then they asked us, can you help us with training? But we thought perhaps we can do something with video, and we did it with screencasting. So we have our LMS, and we put in the LMS introduction and also a practice, and it's and also self-assessments, because they only can prescribe in a new system if they did the self-assessments. But in it, we had a link to the catalog in which we had 32 screencasting videos where they saw how the new system works. And it's very important that they are aware, because if you don't prescribe the right medication, it harms the patients. So what we did 0 classroom, everything we did with our LMS and with the screencasts. So you see, this is the channel in which the doctors can open the videos, and also here they are 2 or 3 minutes. I show an example.
Liever selecteer ik een medicatieopdracht en druk ik op de knop wijzigen. Dus kijk nu het tussenscherm waarin
So the doctors could see how they must prescribe a medication once in a week, or how they must stop them.
Ik pull-down menu gebruiken. En ik kan op oké drukken.
And it's also nice here that I didn't make it. The people at the pharmacy made this. So I helped them from the L&D, how they must make it, and they all made them by themselves. So there are also the prosumers here. What we see in the data, that we had 7,000 views, and that's a lot for 165 doctors and 30 videos. And what we also saw, that the doctors watched almost the whole one. So 80% was watched. So this one was 1 minute and 18 seconds. And the average time watched is 1 minute 5 seconds. So if the doctors didn't like it, they were already stopped at 10 seconds. But this shows us that it really helps them. And we also asked the doctors, and they were also very happy that they didn't go to the classroom, but they could do this in their own time during a night shift, or at home, or in the hospital. So it's also more flexible. And it's very quick and scalable. They could open it also everywhere. All right, I have some wrap-up tips. The first one, is, which we also heard from Barbara, is that you must have a clear view. And mine is that that informal learning can help. So you also saw with the doctors, we had a self-assessment, but we didn't have test registration. And I think video is a good solution for informal learning. The other one is that it must be on demand. So it's very important that the doctors can and the nurses can open it everywhere, on the mobile phone, on the PC, on the laptop, at home, also in the hospital. And the last one is, don't use it because you have a nice tool, but think about why. Why is video the best solution for this? What also helps, what I mentioned, is that I give people the tools that they can create their own content. So the user-generated content, which we heard, is very good. So you have also more ownership, and we have not a big L&D department, so it helps me. I can do it on my own, and it's better if the people make their own content. And as we saw, we have different tools here: mobile phone, screencast, or professional camera, and it's authentic and easy to make, and also at low cost. So we don't have an expensive studio. We film in the hospital at the scene, but that's also more recognizable if it is on in the hospital than it's in an expensive studio. So we use different tools and share them. I have a few tips. As L&D, we do a final check. So we look at is it good quality technically, but also is it is it good for education. We use our learning management system to embed them. So we can embed it in a course or in an e-learning or in a self-assessment, or that's also nice for the LMS. But we also can share individual, or we can also share a whole channel. So then we can distribute a bunch of videos. Search option. Use a good search option. That's for me also a challenge. That if you've got more content, that you want the nurses that they can search quickly if they need the right content. But if we are in our performance support system, it helps that we have there the process, the task, so they don't have to search because they are clicking on the right task. And then be open for feedback. It also helps if you have a very short video and you get feedback that you can do it over again. So then you have a new one. So I hope I inspired you from our examples from our hospital in which we try to listen to the people, the nurses and the doctors, what their needs are, and we can create it in a easy manner. So I hope that you are also be inspired and do not wait for money or big tools, but you can start easily, and if you let people help to create their own content. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of our speakers. We've got a few moments of questions and answer time before we get into our bridge work, which is all about how are you going to do exactly what Jaco just said, which is how are you going to translate this back to your own work. So just have a think, do I have a YouTube account, a LinkedIn account, do I just record something on my video? So have a think about how you want to do that if you want to do that in a moment. But first of all, any questions for our speakers or comments?
Hello, two questions for you. One is, especially with user-generated content, one of my concerns is about quality. How do you make sure that if people are recording video on their mobile phones, that the quality is sufficiently high that you can use it? And then related to that is, how do you get the right content? So if you're looking for people to contribute video content to you, how do you let people know about that? Do they sign up? Do you get multiple submissions? Do you take the best? So can you maybe offer some thoughts on those two subjects?
Yes. If I get a question from a department, I'll have an expert there, and with the expert I'm going to ask what they need. And then I'll help them that they can create their own content. And quality is not a big deal, because if the nurses have the night shift, it's also a bit dark. So it doesn't, it is not a problem if it's a bit dark or a bit, because they like it to be authentic in the own hospital. But I agree with Barbara if she says that if you are hearing people, then it must be good. And we don't choose the best because I help the people, so they make it, but I'll also help them if it's the right videos.
So I'll just add my perspective, and actually, Gemma, I'll also call upon you in a moment because you can share some of the tips. So I think the thing to do is to show them what good looks like and what constitutes good lighting, sound, and all of those things. So if you create some videos to kind of show that as an example, then people have that as a template. I also agree, picking up on what you said. For me, quality is more about the content of the video opposed to necessarily how it looks. So I think that's probably something we need to kind of shift away from. I think there's a time and place for when you spend good money and you get professionally done, but if the quality of the content in terms of it being able to help someone is really relevant, then for me that's what the quality is. Gemma, do you want to say anything more about the approach that you use to sort of template the videos?
Thank you, Jo. I think in terms of what you said about the continuum between urgency of need of that information and production values, it sometimes doesn't matter if you've got low production values. If people really need the information, they'll be happy with whatever the quality is. For me, what we did a lot of, especially when we were at BP, is we created a series of how-to videos that gave people a bit of confidence around it. So we worked to produce like how to storyboard, how to, exactly what you said, get good lighting, get good sound, but also then role modelled some of it as well and showed that it wasn't so scary, so got people to be early adopters almost and show some examples of what they'd done. Just giving it a try, I think is a good one.
Well, thank you very much for that. If you want to ask more questions of our speakers, you are more than welcome to do so. They'll be here for a few minutes afterwards. And remember, you've got their business cards and you've got the article that Barbara wrote for the Clear Lessons Foundation as well. But it's now time for our bridge work. How many of you are thinking, yes, time to make a video? Oh, come on. How many of you are like, if you really make me, I might? Okay, and the rest of you are just like, leave me alone, head down, I'm completely ignoring you and not going to do this at all, aren't you? Come on, be honest. You're not even honest. Oh, I don't know. I would really like you, if you would be comfortable, to make a video, even if you don't share that publicly, perhaps just take your phone, make a video and say, my key learning point from today is, or the thing that I'm going to implement at work tomorrow or next week is. If you really don't want to do that, of course, you don't have to. Please make a few notes in whatever way that you're making notes yourself. If you feel comfortable, please share it on Twitter, #LT19UK, and that would be absolutely awesome. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to do my video and do that right now. So please make either your notes for yourself, your video for yourself, or some kind of video to share. And you've got about 5 minutes to have a think, get some noise going and recording your videos. And a big round of applause once again to our speakers. Thank you.